Joy. Joy. 99.7 FM.
Hello and good evening. My name is Kobe Spiking Kurma and you're tuned in to Joy 99.7 FM. The show is Geek Squad, the show where we break down technology and bring it closer to you in your homes. So, last Sunday, an Ethiopian Airlines plane bound for Kenya crashed. And there's been a lot of questions being asked. People are speculating what might have been the cause. People do not understand a lot of things, but there's one thing that stands out. There's one thing in an airplane that a lot of people do not know what its use, basically, and it's a black box. Well, we call it a black box, but in a technical sense, it has a different name. So it has been retrieved by some investigators, and question is, what is this black box and why is it so important in an airplane and in flights and during an accident? With me to discuss this, I have with me Dr. Yakubu Akparibu. He's an aerospace medicine specialist. Hello, sir.
Hello.
And good evening. So today we're going to educate our listeners on what the black box is and why it's so important that sometimes when a plane crashes, so much time is spent on trying to find where it is. What is this black box and how important is it?
Good evening once again to your listeners, and thank you for having me this
Sure.
evening. A black box is the flight data recorders of the aircraft, and is actually a misnomer that we call it like a black box, but it's actually painted in orange. And
So it's not black.
no, it's not black. Yeah, it's orange, and it's orange because we want it to be easily identified by people in case of an air accident or a crash.
Okay.
So that's why it's painted orange.
So
But
where
then
from this?
It's actually like a street term that nobody really can tell how it came about. Yeah, but then they are not black; they are orange.
They're orange.
Yeah,
And are they boxes?
yeah, they are actually shaped in like rectangular forms. Yeah, and they weigh about 4.5 to 5 kilograms. Yeah, each. So they are actually like rectangular kind of boxes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what happens? What informed this creation of the so-called black box?
Yeah, the history of black boxes actually started like in the 1950s. Yeah, when like aircraft like started crashing, and then we did not have like much information like during the investigations. Like mostly we don't like actually know what happened unless maybe an eyewitness sees like the maneuvers the aircraft went before crashing. Those were like the information that we could get. So because of that, then scientists then try to develop some technology that can help us in aircraft accident investigations. So it started in the 50s, and since then it has evolved over time. And today we have like very sophisticated kind of systems in modern aircraft. Yeah.
So what kind of data does this black box record?
Yeah. So the black box, we have two boxes actually.
Okay.
One is the flight data recorder, and then one is the cockpit voice recorder. Normally, these boxes are placed in like the part of the aircraft that we think like is resistant to like impact forces.
Okay.
So mostly they are in the tail of the aircraft. Yeah. And it records like so many data. So an example is like the altitude. The altitude is like the height that the aircraft is. It can give you like the direction. For now, I'm talking about the flight data recorder itself. So that can give you the direction, the speed that the aircraft was moving. It gives like a ton of data, but the minimum modern flight data recorders can give up to like 88 parameters of the flight.
Wow.
Yeah.
So all this data that is collected is stored in this black box.
Exactly.
So in an incident of an accident, an airplane crash, when that black box is retained, they can now go and decode this messages, this data, and then find out what exactly happened.
Exactly. So when air accident happens, normally that is what we normally want to find first.
Okay.
Because so with this Ethiopian Airlines, I'm sure pretty much by next week we'll know exactly what caused the crash, but it may not be made public. Yeah.
Why is that?
Yeah, it's normally due to like insurance issues and then privacy, because you know there are human beings involved and all that kind of stuff. So normally they want to wait and redo so many things to make sure that it's 100% accurate. In aviation, there's no chance for error, especially with investigations.
Right.
Yeah, because normally there are things that we normally use to improve systems. So you want to make sure that you are very diligent in it. So within 1 week, they will definitely know what the cause is, but they won't just issue a report. They will still test and test and test to see whether there are other factors that were involved.
Great.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that it's stored in certain parts of the plane that do not really come, they don't get impact. So what part of the plane would you keep the black box? And if that part of the plane is not susceptible to impact, wouldn't that be the best place for me to go and sit next time on a plane?
That's really interesting. Yeah, yeah, you are right. Yeah, because if why do you want to rather protect boxes when you should rather put the human being there so that So normally the tail at that place you can have like a seat there.
Okay.
You know, that's why human beings can sit on it. And then also you cannot also sit outside that because, the environmental conditions are not survivable, So that is why, like...
It's always kept in the tail.
Exactly. So it's kept in the tail. And then so that if there is, like, an accident, and then we are able to, like, retrieve it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what kind of materials are these black boxes made of that they can withstand plane crashes? Because from what we've seen, aviation fuel is highly flammable.
Yeah.
And if this box is in a plane and there's a crash, there's so much weight that is going to land on it. Yeah. There's so much fire and all this. How is it possible that this box is able to withstand all these things? Yeah,
so it's normally modern day black boxes are made of like solid state drives, so they are like small kind of chips.
Yeah.
And then they are embedded in crash resistant material. So in aviation we have something called G forces.
Okay.
So normally it's the G forces that is exerted on like an object that makes it get destroyed or damaged. So what we do is that even with the human body, we are able to tell. When there's like an accident, when we look at the remains, we'll be able to know how much forces that were exerted on the people before. So we know that maybe the head, you have about 30 G that may fracture the skull and that kind of stuff. So it's the same way that we do tests. So we'll know that maybe an aircraft traveling at maybe about 500 knots, which would be about 5,000 kilometers per hour.
That is fast.
That's very fast. And the forces that will be exerted when something like that drops is so enormous. So scientists do like tests in labs. They exert forces in certain materials to test the resistance of those ones, and then they also put them in high temperature areas to test their flammability before they use them for before they use those materials for black boxes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask a very dumb question.
Yeah.
If we could actually discover materials that could make a box indestructible in the case of a plane crash, why can't we make a plane from equally indestructible material?
Yeah. That's very interesting. Yeah. So in aviation, fuel is a big problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the commercial jetliners or the airline carriers operate for money.
Yeah.
So like fuel is a big factor. So even with the airframe, it's composite material. Normally it's carbon fiber.
Right.
Yeah, they
Which
wouldn't
is very
use
expensive.
exactly, and then they are very light material, not heavy and all that. So they don't want to use like iron or those like kind of heavy stuff that is going to make the aircraft very heavy, and
then you're going to burn more fuel.
When
trying to take off.
Yeah,
that makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, so that's
these, you mentioned kind of data that the black box also captures.
Yeah.
And from my research, it's all a bunch of recording of data and all that.
Yeah.
And then there's also the voice
that
is recorded from the cockpit.
Yeah.
But I found out that they record just about 2 hours in a loop.
Yeah.
Why don't they record the whole flight?
Yeah. So with the flight data recorder, that can record for about 25 hours.
Right.
And it's more like a kind of continuous loops recording.
Yeah.
So let's take it records for like 1 day and nothing happens. All that information is going to be overridden.
Right.
And then new recordings comes up. So that is what the flight data. So that is what I said is able to record like the height, that's the altitude. The altitude is the position in reference to the air surface and those kind of stuff. And then the maneuvers, what inputs were put on the aircraft and that kind of stuff. Now, the one that you mentioned, the cockpit one, records only 2 hours.
Okay.
Now, why that even before is now 2? Before it used to be like 15 minutes, but then now it's about 2 hours for most of the aircraft, because it's just like if it's going the work space of the cockpit is like a private area for the two pilots. So when they are there, they can have like private conversations and those kind of stuff. So if the aircraft, the cockpit voice recorder is going to record everything, then the pilot's like private conversation is going to be recorded. So and normally it's just the accidents, what happened before the accidents that we want to know. And those ones are just some seconds kind of decisions. So you want to know what the pilot communicated to the air traffic controller, what he said to his co-pilot, and then what controls, the inputs he was keying on the avionics, and then the sounds that were coming inside the cabin and that kind of stuff. And normally those ones happen just like few minutes or seconds before the accident. So that's why you want to just limit it to just a small fraction of the time.
So why don't they capture video in the planes too? Because that could also give them information.
That's also a very important question. So when the Malaysian aircraft that vanished, that was the question people were asking. Why don't they put like radars and then so that video of the aircraft can be transmitted maybe into a control center and then Okay, there are companies that can actually do that.
Okay.
But the Airline Pilots Association actually kicked against it because it's going to be like releasing, like I told you,
Yeah, private stuff.
Yeah, privacy issues and all that kind of
Okay.
stuff. Because flying these days is pretty much automated.
Yeah.
So it can get boring and all
And
that
then they
stuff
have
with them.
conversations.
Exactly. So especially when the aircraft is at a cruise altitude, they will travel maybe about 5-6 hours,
Yeah.
even going to the US maybe 10 hours and all that. So because of that, they have to use iPads, chat and all that kind of stuff, and then also do like
Yeah.
crew resource, more fatigue management,
Yeah.
those stuff. And those are private issues that you don't want to
go out there.
out.
Yeah,
So the
makes sense.
Airline Pilots Association actually kicked against it. Yeah. And
makes
Air
sense.
Canada actually wanted to implement it. Yeah.
But then,
So, yeah, but
They
they
fought against it, so.
yeah.
are there any instances where like a black box has been damaged after an accident?
Yeah, there are instances that it can be damaged, but so far I'm fortunate actually to have been to one of the labs in Farnborough, in England, is like close to Southampton.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where the AAIB's lab for analyzing this.
The
record.
AIB is.
That's the Air Accident Investigative Branch of the UK.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So they have like a lab in Farnborough. So this Ethiopian Air one, I'm sure it will be taken there.
Okay.
Yeah. So there are cases that like the black boxes can get damaged, but when we went there, they're like, no matter what happens, they'll use technology in order to retrieve the information. So it's the micro, like these current ones are the solid state ones.
solid
so
states,
so it's that information that they will get. So
Okay.
sometimes, but it's very rare. But I haven't heard of an instance that it got damaged beyond repair that they can't get any information. Sometimes, yeah,
They can get it.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and then there's also the times when the black boxes fall into the ocean.
Yeah.
And from my research, it appears that they have these pings that they send signals to indicate where they are.
Exactly.
Why can't they make them buoyant? So when they fall in the sea, it deploys sort of like a life jacket kind of thing that will make it float and will make it easier to find.
Yeah.
But it's so heavy, it will definitely sink.
Wow, that's really good thinking. I think you should put more. We'll be rich men if we're able to
implement that. All the geek squatters listening, we should think about this.
Yeah, it's something that. Yeah, so that is like a solution you've proposed.
Yeah.
But the downside about it is that is the material that can withstand that kind of impact forces.
So.
You know, the material they use to do that are not like light material that can float.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is why normally, because it's not only impact forces, but even fire, temperature, and all that. And that is why, like, it has to sink below the seabed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned also that.
So what? Sorry.
Sure, no problem.
What the Geek Squad people should be thinking is to actually look for material that will be light, just like the way we've discovered carbon fiber.
Yes.
You should get material that will be light that way, that can resist those kind of environmental factors.
And then the heat and the fire.
Exactly.
We're going to look into it.
And then Ghana will definitely...
we'll make in a lot of money. We'll patent it and then make a lot of money.
Yeah.
So if you're listening to us, you can send us a message on 0244340437. We're talking about the black box, which is not black, which it contains all the flight data from airplanes, and it contains a cockpit voice, and we're learning a lot from Dr. Yakubu Akwaribu. And if you want to ask him any questions, just send your messages to 0244340437. I'll be opening the phone lines in a bit, but before that, I still have some questions I have to ask you before my listeners, get in with their own questions. Okay. So you mentioned how the airline companies the airlines, they overwrite it over a certain period of time. So do they audit previous flights? Like, for instance, let's say I was on a flight and then we hit a bit of turbulence and then there were some challenges. The flight's data recorded all this, but then the plane goes back in the air. Is there any way that flight data record is audited to see what happened, or it's just overwritten unless there's a serious emergency or something happens?
Yeah. Normally, it's even have to be like checked every year.
Okay.
You know, so like if there's turbulence or maybe something happens with turbulence, that one you wouldn't need much information from the flight data recorders because it's more of like environmental like kind of issues and that kind of. So definitely like the weather informations and that kind of stuff, you get that.
Okay.
Yeah, but then for sure is always checked. Yeah.
Okay.
And like I said, every year they have to always check it to make sure that it's functioning properly.
Okay. So
that one is sorry.
No problem.
Is mandatory. That is like by law. Yeah.
That
but
every
then,
year.
Yeah, that every year. But then most airlines actually check it more frequently than that.
Okay, so I want you to take us through the whole process of how the data recorders are handled after an aviation event, from when they go to start to look for it till when they get the actual data.
Okay. Yeah, so when they normally go to look for the black boxes, you know, if it's in the water, normally they use like kind of beacons or receivers to pick up the pings and all that. So you do all that to find it, and then it's sent to the lab, and then it's then extracted, and then the data is then with the cockpit one, they will then play to know what sounds were happening in the cockpit and that kind of stuff. And then how that helps us in finding the cause of the accidents are that, you know, in aviation or in like commercial jetliners, we have something called redundancy. Everything is in twos.
Okay.
There's nothing there. That's even why pilots
are in twos.
Right. That's how it is. Engines, they can be in fours and all that. So it's always very difficult for the system to fail. So it's always very, very difficult. So about maybe 10 to 20% may be from the systems.
Okay.
Maybe about 10%. And then 80% is normally from us, the human beings, controlling the avionics.
Yeah.
So what happens is, from the inputs that the pilot keyed on the avionics, we can tell whether maybe the pilot made a mistake in doing that or not. So let's take, for example, the Air France flight that crashed off the coast of Brazil. That was an Airbus one. So what happened was that the cockpit voice recorder actually gave more information as to why that accident happened.
Yeah.
There's something called the pitot tube that normally detects the airspeed.
Okay.
So that fly's pitot tube got frozen. Normally it's not supposed to get frozen.
Frozen due to environmental.
Exactly. Okay. But normally it's supposed to be warm. So even when you enter into very cold place, it's not supposed to freeze. But in this instance, it got frozen.
But what exactly does it do?
It detects the airspeed, so it's able to tell you the speed at which the aircraft is moving and all that. So when that gets frozen, then that information is not then recorded. You know, so the pilots then wouldn't know like the speed at which the aircraft is moving. They would think that maybe the aircraft has stalled, like it's no more moving. So that was what happened. The pitot tube got frozen. And then the pilots tried, the captain himself also took a rest because they had just taken off, and then he went to rest. So the two co-pilots who were young guys, they were then controlling the flight. So they tried to so if it stalls, you want to push the nose down so that you gain more speed and then you pick up. So when the thing got frozen and then they thought it had stalled, they tried pushing it down. And then for like 15 minutes, they didn't know what they were doing. And the system corrected itself. It corrected itself, and they still didn't know that it had corrected. And they were still pushing the nose down when the aircraft was now performing normal. So they pushed the nose down until the aircraft like impacted the sea. You know, so those informations all are normally recorded in the cockpit voice record. And that helps us in knowing what
exactly happened.
Yeah.
There was this instance where there was a flight.
Yeah.
And when they retrieved the black box, they realized that the pilot actually intentionally crashed the plane.
Exactly.
Because he had locked the cabin, and then they could tell that the other pilot was banging on the door, asking him to open.
Exactly.
So Okay.
Yeah.
Now, we've got a question from one of our listeners. He
Okay.
says, please, why is it that no one survives in an aeroplane crash? And in the video release, I can see the air hostess distributing oxygen bottles. Please, why is the distribution taking place? That's Eric AJ from Kumasi.
Okay. Yeah. With in regards to his first question, I mentioned earlier something about G forces.
Yeah.
Now, I was put in a centrifuge, and then a centrifuge is like kind of machine, and then normally it's military pilots or fast jet pilots that will use it to train them. And I was put in it, and then they sent it to about 5G. Only 5G, I lost consciousness.
Wow.
I still have the video. And normally with aircraft, at the speed that they are going, they can exert more than about 1,000 Gs.
Okay.
And the human body alone, the skull, which is one of the hardest parts of the human body, can withstand about, I think, 35 Gs.
Okay.
So you can imagine about 1,000 G being exerted on your body is going to be fragmented.
Fatal.
Yeah. So that's why, like, normally aircraft crashes, no one survives. That's one of the factors. The second one too is the post crash factors. If it crashes deep into the sea, now most people are going to drown. Although there are life rafts and all that, but then by the time like search and rescue is going to get them, it's going to be frozen. You know. So that is one of the and then the other one is post crash fires. Yeah. Normally, especially during takeoff, when they are taking off, because the fuel tanks are full, when they crash, then it's going to be like a ball of fireball, and then that is also why people die. Okay, so and then I think he asked a follow-up question about the oxygen
tanks.
Yeah, I haven't seen that video, but I don't think that it's probably from that crash. But normally, I'll just explain to him how the oxygen system works. So when there's like loss of carbon pressure, then there's like an emergency oxygen source in the aircraft that drops. Yeah. So and I'll just use this opportunity to also educate people. When those marks drop, don't move towards it. Okay. If you move towards it, it won't activate. You won't be able to get the air to breathe. So the system is made in such a way that you have to pull it. So you pull it towards your face and then your nose, and then as you take in your breath, and then it activate it, and then you get the oxygen. So you don't move towards it. And that oxygen normally it can only last for like 15 minutes. Okay. So it's normally released in emergency situations. So you have like smoke in the cockpit. Smoke, because of carbon monoxide, can actually kill you so quick. So when those factors are in the cockpit or you lose carbon pressure, then those marks will drop automatically. And the rationale is for the pilot to be able to descend up to an altitude that everybody can breathe normally. Yeah. So normally below 10,000 feet, you will be able to breathe without oxygen. So they will try to descend that way quicker, faster, and then look for a place to land. So that oxygen source is normal for about 15 minutes, and it's for emergency situations. If that video is really true, then maybe something probably happened. Either smoke was in the cockpit, in the cabin, or maybe there was some rapid decompression. Maybe the structure of the aircraft probably got damaged or something, and then the pilot released that in order to get a place to land, and things didn't work well and it crashed. I'm just speculating. I haven't seen that video, and I can't confirm if it's actually from this. Islands. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
we don't have enough time for phone calls, but I'm still going to open the phone lines anyway. We'll take about two of them. 0302-216-541, 0302-216-541. We still have some more questions. Hi, Geek Squad. Can using a phone with a network operator cause an aircraft to malfunction? Because I see it a lot in our local airlines. Is there a rule, or is just an advice or a plea? Linus.
Okay. Yeah, it's a federal regulation actually, and it's a federal offense. Especially with U.S. registered aircrafts and then U.S. airspace. And it's also like an offense in Ghana by the GCA laws. So normally, because aircraft systems are radio controlled and that kind of stuff, is more radio frequency ones. Yeah. And phone receivers are also radio frequencies. Yeah. So because of that, we don't want like interferences, and that's why we normally advise that you
People
put your
don't
phone.
use it.
Yeah.
So we have a call on the line. Hello, Ajimai.
Yes, sir. Good evening.
Good evening. You're one of our lucky callers.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Your question.
Actually, today I haven't listened fully.
Okay.
But, pardon me if I'm going off.
Sure.
When you take vessels, for instance, when it's going to rain, there's something that indicates that it will rain. And most of the times we hear this place because of bad weather, it is not going to take off.
Right.
But why is it that sometimes there's a crash and after the crash we hear bad weather, some technicalities? What is there that the experts are not able to see that these things are being caused?
Okay. Thank you very much, Ajimai. So that was Ajimai's question. He wants to know about bad weather.
Yeah, that's a very good one. Normally, aviation weather we predict it. Like there's something called METAP. So if I want to take off maybe from Accra to Kumasi, I have to look at the weather in Kumasi and then through the route and all that. So those are planned things that you can know. So if the weather is bad, then you want to replan your flight. Now, rain per se doesn't affect flying. It's normally the storms.
Right.
Yeah, it's those ones that are dangerous. So it's the storms that are dangerous. So rain per se will not have any problem. And sometimes you can have like weather, like you predict that the weather in this place is going to be that way, but then you get there and then things suddenly change, and then you wouldn't and then it causes
affect,
problems.
yeah.
Can affect the flight.
We have another call on the line.
Okay.
Sorry. Hello, Lukman.
Hello, good evening.
Hi, good evening, Lukman. Thanks for calling again.
Yeah, thank you very much. We are learning a lot from this.
Trust me, I'm also learning a lot.
Yes. You know, I quite remember when September 11 happened, this black box, can we also call it the DNA of the aircraft? Because BBC was able to play some part of the box. What happened before the plane was crashed into the Twin Towers. Please, I want to know, some time ago, Malaysian aircraft was missing.
Yes.
And they suspected that the black box was in the sea, and they were searching for it.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened. Have they been able to find the aircraft or the black box?
No.
Thank you very much. We are learning a lot from this particular program.
Thank you very much for calling, Lukman.
Yeah, we've not been able to locate the black boxes, the area that, the problem with that aircraft was that the area of the ocean that we didn't know the exact location that maybe disappeared.
Yeah.
If we had known the exact location, like by now, we would have located them. But the area is so vast, it's more like the whole of Africa in that area of the sea, you know. So that is why it's so difficult that they've not been able to find it.
Right. Because someone was also asking, can you come to a definite conclusion in the case of like the Malaysian Airlines that this is what caused the crash if you don't find the black box?
No, you can't.
So without the black box, you can't.
Yeah, not. There are some clear cases that you may be able to know. So
like when you have an eyewitness.
Exactly, and eyewitnesses to not all the time are reliable. So maybe the plane took off and somebody took a video like of it, and then it crashes. That one you see what happened and all that. And even with that, you cannot even conclude that because you wouldn't have an idea about the input. So still you have to rely on the black boxes.
So we have another caller. Hello, Kojo.
Yeah, good evening.
Good evening, Kojo.
Yeah, please, I want to also find out. If you look at the videos that are circulating, you could see that, when the plane was about to crash, people were trying to see if they could get out of it or make an attempt of saving their life. I want to ask the doc, is there any way that in situations like this, people can really do something, or is there any technology that can help people to escape, to avoid these kind of deadly crashes?
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kojo.
Yeah. If you jump out of the aircraft at that altitude, you're definitely going to die because you can't breathe, and then environmental temperature and all that. So, in regards to like a way of surviving, there's like the small airplanes, the Cyrus aircraft, for instance, has something called a ballistic release system. So with the ballistic release system, when you notice that the aircraft is going to crash, then you deploy that.
Right.
And then the aircraft can crash, but it's more like a parachute.
Okay.
So it brings you down. So the Cyrus aircraft, they have that, but they are just for the kind of flying that I do, like for recreational or leisure kind of flying. They are not in commercial flight. So you can't put those ones on
a commercial
plane.
Because
because the number of passengers are so many that
you won't be able to carry.
You won't be able to.
It's rather unfortunate. I know you guys have sending in so many messages, and I wish I could read them all, but unfortunately George Addo and his team are here to give you commentary, UEFA Champions League commentary. Yep, so we have to round up. Thank you very much, Dr. Yakubu Akparibu, for joining us on the show. We've learnt a mighty lot, and I'm sure my audience have too. They've been asking so many questions. I'm sure we'll find another way to have a different conversation around these so we can answer their questions. This has been Geek Squad. Next up is George Addo and his team. I'll catch you guys next week.
Hi, my name is Lennox, an engineer turned finance manager. Month-end